Capital controversy. Donald Trump says he wants to advance peace with a decision condemned around the world. I'm Imran Garda, and today's newsmaker is Jerusalem. It's an election promise many people hoped he would break, but despite immense global opposition, US President Donald Trump declared Jerusalem the capital of Israel. The city is home to some of the holiest sites for Muslims, Christians and Jews. The question of the city's ownership has been one of the trickiest issues at the heart of one of the world's most complicated conflicts. So, Trump's plan to move the US embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem was bound to create a backlash. Within 24 hours, demonstrators squared off against security forces in the occupied West Bank, while the leader of Hamas in the Gaza Strip called for a new intifada. So what impact will the decision have on hopes for peace? Natalie Perhonen reports.
We finally acknowledge the obvious, that Jerusalem is Israel's capital. This is nothing more or less than a recognition of reality. It is also the right thing to do.
Despite warnings from key allies, President Trump has changed decades of US Middle East policy.
Thank you very much.
His decision to call Jerusalem Israel's capital and to relocate the US embassy there has led to protests around the world and political condemnation.
C'est une décision regrettable.
Böyle bir adımı atmak dünyada özellikle bu bölgeyi ateş çemberinin içine atmaktır.
Indonesia mengecam keras pengakuan sepihak Amerika Serikat terhadap Jerusalem.
For more than 20 years, US presidents have had the option to move the embassy from Tel Aviv. The Jerusalem Embassy Act of 1995 states US policy is that Jerusalem should be recognized as the capital of the State of Israel, and the United States Embassy in Israel should be established in Jerusalem. Bill Clinton, George W. Bush and Barack Obama each postponed making that call. Every 6 months they were given the option of using a presidential waiver if it was necessary to protect the national security interests of the United States. Trump's decision this week means America will be on its own when it eventually moves the embassy. The Israeli and Palestinian conflict has been at the heart of modern US foreign policy. Donald Trump is not the first president to pursue an American-led peace deal, but he has taken a different path to his predecessors, and he doesn't think there has to be a two-state solution.
Israelis and Palestinians can make a deal. Historically, people say it can't happen. I say it can happen.
The potential for a deal was on the table when Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas met with Trump in September. Now, Abbas says the US can no longer be a peace broker.
إن هذه الإجراءات المستنكرة والمرفوضة تشكل تقويضاً متعمداً لجميع الجهود المبذولة من أجل تحقيق السلام.
Hamas says Trump's Jerusalem announcement will open the gates of hell.
We'd also like to say we can't react to this policy that's supported by the US in any other way than to launch a new intifada against the occupation.
Trump says the US action is not about specific boundaries or borders, but he does acknowledge the religious importance of Jerusalem for Muslims, Jews and Christians. Israel's Prime Minister says freedom of worship will be ensured.
There will be no change whatsoever to the status quo with the holy sites.
Old challenges demand new approaches. My announcement today marks the beginning of a new approach to conflict between Israel and the Palestinians.
Will his approach be one that delivers peace or creates further bloodshed? Natalie Perhonen, The Newsmakers.
Well, to discuss this, I'm joined now from Ramallah by Mustafa Barghouti. He's the Secretary General of the Palestinian National Initiative. He's also a former member of the PLO and was a member of the Palestinian Unity Government. In Minneapolis, Jacob Milner, he's the spokesman for the Israel Project. And in Tel Aviv, Gideon Levy, he's an Israeli journalist and author. Gentlemen, I thank you very much for joining us on the Newsmakers. Mustafa Barghouti, let me begin with you. Trump's decision, did it surprise you?
No. We were not surprised because what he has done is very compatible with his behavior. It was a reckless decision, a irresponsible decision. And there were so many indications that this American administration is so biased to Israel. It did nothing to restrain Israel from expanding settlement activities, which went 100% more than it was since Trump was elected. It has not really supported the idea of Palestinian statehood and never said that. And now they came up with this crazy idea of recognizing Jerusalem as a capital of Israel, which makes the United States administration a participant in violation of international law, a participant in supporting occupation, and it puts the United States administration outside the ranks of any possibility of playing any positive role or any role, to be specific, in any peace process.
Okay, so let's...
What has happened is very dangerous, very reckless.
Okay, dangerous, reckless. Jacob Milner, why has he done this now? I mean, essentially prejudging any final status issues taken aside in an intractable conflict. That's what Trump has done, hasn't he?
Well, you know, I think that President Trump has taken the position that the reality on the ground is that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Jerusalem, as he said yesterday, is the capital of Israel. It's the seat of government. It's where the parliament is. It's where...
It is not the capital
Jerusalem
of
is the
Israel.
capital of
That's
Israel,
what Israel
and
claims.
the United States government
the capital of Israel
in 1995
and is not recognized by anybody in the world.
Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, and the 1995 Jerusalem Embassy Act, which says that the United States should move its embassy to Jerusalem, Trump just really looked at the realities on the ground and put into law that that the United States would uphold its commitment to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Gideon Levy, does this worry you? I mean, we look at the situation. We already see a call for a day of rage. We see Ismail Haniyeh calling for a new intifada. People are upset around and across the Arab and Muslim world. We could already see how this was going to play out, and it's playing out in that way. Does it worry you, Gideon Levy?
It worries me, but in a limited way, because I'm not sure that another intifada will come out of this declaration, even though, you know, you can never know. The first intifada broke because of a car accident, and frustration is there, justified frustration, and this declaration will not add anything positive to the sentiments which are in the occupied territories. But by the end of the day, one should remember that it's only a declaration of a president who is very problematic in the eyes of most of the world. I think the only place on earth that they really take him seriously and applaud him is Israel. And it says something about Israel. And by the end of the day, we might also see a scenario in which in a few weeks, this whole thing will be almost forgotten.
Okay, interesting. That's an interesting take on it. Jacob Milner, does it take the shine off it for you that the only person congratulating Donald Trump seems to be Benjamin Netanyahu? Even allies across the board have condemned it, some harshly, some softly, but there's not a single nation in the world or leader in the world who has come out and said, hey, this is a good thing, because nobody recognizes Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Does it take the shine off it for you?
I don't think we should get caught up in the in the situation where we look at and say Trump has unpopular approval ratings in the United States or unpopular approval ratings across the world. I think the reality is that it's about time that the United States live up to its obligations from the 1995 Embassy Act and recognize the realities on the ground, which is that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, it is the seat of government, and every country has the right to determine what city is its capital. The United States would not tell England that London isn't its capital or Paris is not the capital of France. And I recognize what Mr. Barghouti said earlier, that there are situations on the ground regarding final settlement discussions, and as President Trump said yesterday, the final status of Jerusalem is not negated by his decision yesterday to recognize Jerusalem as the capital. That can be part of a final discussion.
Okay, so Mustafa Barghouti, this does not negate final status agreements. Oslo still stands. The peace process still stands, according to Jacob Milner. What do you think?
I think we are not children who don't understand what's going on. This is a game by Mr. Trump and his allies to camouflage what he has done by talking that things will be negotiated later. But let me ask a question. If Trump recognized Jerusalem as a capital of Israel because Israel says it is its capital, why didn't he recognize East Jerusalem as a capital of Palestine, since we say that Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine? Why didn't he say he also recognizes Jerusalem as a capital of Palestine? He didn't do that because he's biased, because he's supporting occupation, because he's supporting a system of apartheid, because he is racist, because he does not understand the right of the Palestinian people to be free. And the Israelis are now very happy. Let them be happy with such a leader. It's fine. And Intifada will start. In my opinion, it has already started. And it will go on. And when I say an Intifada, I don't mean violence. I mean a repetition of the fascinating uprising that happened in Jerusalem, which was totally peaceful, totally non-violent, and which forced Netanyahu to retreat from all the obstructions he has created in Jerusalem. What Mr. Trump has done is irresponsible, it is destabilizing the region, and it is much bigger than just an announcement. In reality, he has just declared the end and the death of Oslo process. He has just declared the end of 25 years of negotiations that resulted in nothing. It's sobering for us as Palestinians. Actually, it will help us because it will liberate our hands from all the restrictions that were put by the American administration, and we will see Israel in the International Court of Justice. And we will see Mr. Trump in the WHO and FAO and the Organization of Intellectual Property. We'll see what will he do when we join these institutions as a state of Palestine. Will he withdraw? Let's see.
Mr. Barghouti, do you regret all the negotiations then over the years? Are you basically stating that the likes of Hamas were right when they said the rest of you were wasting your time negotiating?
First of all, I am one of those who opposed Oslo Agreement from the very first beginning, because Oslo Agreement included three mistakes. I am not Hamas. I belong to the Palestinian Initiative, but like Edward Said and Haidar Abd al-Shafi, we all felt that it was a mistake because it was an agreement signed by the PLO recognizing Israel without Israel recognizing Palestine. It was a mistake because it was an agreement signed without stopping settlement activities. And the result is that we have now 750,000 settlers instead of 111,000. And it was a mistake because it was an interim agreement without deciding the final status issues. And the final status issues like Jerusalem, borders, refugees were postponed. Now they are eliminated because Netanyahu says, don't talk to me anymore. There will be no negotiations unless you recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. That's the end of that horrible process. But that's not the end of the Palestinian cause. There is another very big issue too, which is that it is quite possible that the United States and Israel can kill the two-state solution. But then they will have to meet the fact that we will struggle for one-state solution.
Right.
And we will never accept to be slaves in a system of apartheid. This should be clear to everybody.
Okay, interesting point. Let me ask Gideon Levy. Gideon Levy, is there a silver lining then for Palestinians by the fact that the Trump administration has gone down this route? Does it make things a little bit clearer as to whose side the US is on? And might it, as Mustafa Barghouti suggests, open up the discussion for an eventual South Africa solution?
Absolutely. I think that what Donald Trump did may even be perceived in positive light if you see that he just put an end to the masquerade. And this masquerade is going on now for 25 years. My friend Dr. Barghouti mentioned the fact that Donald Trump proved that the United States is not an even mediator. The United States never was an even mediator. And the peace process was a joke from its beginning because never was there an Israeli partner who really had the intention to put an end to the occupation. Never. And as long as there was never an Israeli politician or Israeli leader or statesman who really thought genuinely to put an end to the occupation, peace process had no chance. maybe the contribution of Donald Trump now is to put an end to this masquerade. And yes, the Palestinians and us Israelis should realize that the funeral of the two-state solution took place already. It's not that it's going to die. The funeral took place already. This train left the station and it will never get back. And we have to draw the conclusion out of it, namely to change the discourse and to start to talk about equal rights. This should be the new discourse. And let's see if Israel, how will Israel react to this discourse? Because, you know, saying no to equal rights is declaring an apartheid state. And let's see how the West will react to a new apartheid system in the world. Will it just stand still and do nothing? Will it accept another apartheid state? Or will it react like it reacted with the first apartheid state?
Okay, so Jacob Milner, you have two other guests here, one Israeli, one Palestinian, both telling you, one in Ramallah, one in Tel Aviv, both telling you the two-state solution is dead and buried. It's a masquerade. It's a fiction. It's time to think more creatively and move forward. What do you think?
Well, there's a whole lot to unpack in this back and forth right now, but I don't believe that the two-state solution is that, and I don't think that the Trump announcement yesterday puts an end to the two-state solution. I would argue, contrary to what Mr. Barghouti said, that the Israelis don't have a willing partner for peace, as we've seen over the years in negotiations. And I would say also that what we see right now coming out of this declaring a day of rage or another intifada only shows that the Israelis don't have a real partner for peace, because how can the Israelis negotiate with with a people that will incite violence if they don't get what they want? And I think that really shows the true face.
Who talked about violence? I want to ask you
Hamas right now threatens
if he believes in no, I want to ask a question. If he believes in two-state solution, let him tell me, will he accept that East Jerusalem will be the capital of the Palestinian state?
First of all, that is not for me to decide. That, I think, should be a discussion between the Israelis and the Palestinians on the ground. I think if that was something that would be decided
can you
between
tell
the
me,
Israelis
please,
and the
can you tell me what are the borders of Israel? No, tell me what are the borders of the state of Israel? What are the borders of the states of Israel?
This is not,
Is it the Jordan Valley?
This is not for me to tell you.
How can you say that Palestinians are not a partner for peace when Israel is the only country in the world that does not say what its borders are? It is Mr. Netanyahu that does not want peace.
Okay, so Jacob,
it is all Israeli leaders that did not want peace.
Okay, so Jacob,
it is the government of Israel that insists on keeping occupation. So don't sell us these lies.
Okay,
we are tired of these lies. Enough is enough.
Okay, so Jacob Milner, doesn't the man make a good point? On the one hand, you're saying it's up to the Israelis and the Palestinians to decide down the road when they're talking. And on the other hand, you're saying if Israel wants Jerusalem to be its capital, Trump must just recognize it. Where were the Palestinians in that decision?
No, so to get back to the previous point, I believe that the final status, the final borders between Israel and a future Palestinian state should be decided between Israel and the Palestinians. Obviously, we can sit here and discuss lines, the Jordan Valley or the 67 lines or the armistice lines. We can go back and forth and back and forth. But again, that's not for me to decide. I think that is for the people on the ground to decide. Regarding the decision made yesterday by the Trump administration.
The whole of Palestine will be the joint state, and I will be running to be the prime minister of that state. And maybe I will be winning. And it will not be a Jewish-only state. That's fine. It's fine with me. I think Gidon Levy will vote for me. And let's do it. You don't want two-state solution?
Absolutely.
Fine. Let's do one-state solution.
Okay.
Me and Gidon Levy will be together in one level.
I do believe that
against Netanyahu, against the extremists like Likud party.
Okay, Jacob, I want a final comment from Jacob and then a final one from Gideon. Jacob, go ahead.
I believe that Israel should exist as a Jewish and democratic state. I believe that what is occurring on the ground in Israel, the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, does not negate any Palestinian claims to parts of East Jerusalem or parts of the West Bank. I think that what is going on the ground is a recognition of the realities on the ground. I believe that the final status between the Israelis and the Palestinians should be negotiated between Israel and the Palestinians in a way that
So do you support ending occupation?
Solutions to the conflict. I believe that they should come to an agreement between Israel and the Palestinians in a way that is equitable for both sides.
Okay, let me ask Gideon Levy.
Then why you impose Israel?
Okay, Mustafa and Jacob, because we're running out of time, I want a final word from Gideon Levy. Gideon Levy, what do you make of the fact that I've been doing this for a little while and for more than a decade, discussing this issue with esteemed gentlemen such as yourselves, and what's interesting for me is that a decade ago, the very concept of one state was very marginal and seen as something that was said only by fringe activists. Now it's in the mainstream discourse. What does that tell you about Israel and Palestine in the year 2017, Gideon?
This is a source of hope. I mean, if there are some good news around, this is a source for good news. If there is any place for optimism, this is the reason. But by the end of the day, don't be mistaken, in Israel there is no intention whatsoever to go for one democratic state, one secular democratic state. In Israel, it's almost a taboo to mention it. It's still a long way to go, but we have to start it, and we have to stop repeating ourselves about a train that left the station. There will never be a two-state solution because the settlers won, because 700,000 settlers will never be evacuated, and without their evacuation, there will never be a viable Palestinian state. And let's realize it, and at least for our friends in the West who care about freedom or justice, try to release yourself from those chains of the two-state solution. It was a wonderful solution, but it's not relevant anymore. Let's realize it, and let's start to work on the notion of equal rights. Who can say no to equal rights, for God's sake? And what justification can be to say no to equal rights? Okay. Israel wants a Jewish state, okay, fair enough. But then it had to give up the occupation a long time ago.
Right.
You can't have it all.
Okay, Gideon Levy, Jacob Milner, and Mustafa Barghouti. I've got to move on, but I do really appreciate that you all took the time to come on the Newsmakers. Thank you very much. Still ahead on the Newsmakers, Kenya's opposition leader gets set to declare himself president. Could he end up being tried for treason? And we speak to Nobel Peace Prize winner Tawakkol Karman to ask if the conflict in Yemen can ever be resolved. Welcome back to the Newsmakers. It's less than a week till Kenya's opposition leader swears himself in on Independence Day, no less. But the Attorney General has warned Raila Odinga that a rival inauguration would basically be treason, a crime punishable by death. As tensions continue to mount, the US has jumped in, urging Odinga not to go ahead with it. But his opposition coalition are adamant. The National Super Alliance, or NASA, say the swearing-in is lawful and that President Kenyatta is not the legitimate leader. Vanessa Keneally has more.
Hereby introduce and wish to bring to the people of Kenya the President-elect, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta.
Sworn in an elaborate ceremony in Nairobi, surrounded by 60,000 supporters. Among those on stage was Kenya's top judge. He's the same man who annulled the first of 2 presidential elections in August because of gross irregularities. Kenyatta responded by calling the Supreme Court a bunch of crooks who he would fix if he won the election rerun in October. And he did win, making for an awkward inauguration. There was also tension outside the stadium and across Nairobi. Less than an hour after Kenyatta's swearing in, those who believed opposition leader Raila Odinga should have won voiced their anger, and that feeling hasn't gone away. Odinga called the inauguration a coronation, suggesting it wasn't legitimate, and has said he'll be president at least in name if that's what Kenyans want.
We have said this coming month of December, on the 12th, we shall have a People's Assembly that will swear me into office.
So Odinga's National Super Alliance Party is rolling ahead with its plans to swear in its leader as president next week, regardless of the cost.
It's not only about NASA fraternity, it's about justice of what has been denied unto others. Why kill an innocent person? Why kill an armed person? Why kill for sure? It is so much pathetic. The government that we need to protect us is no longer protecting us.
And that national violence is drawing international attention. A private meeting was held on Tuesday between US Representative Donald Yamamoto and Odinga, urging Odinga not to go ahead with his swearing-in ceremony over concerns it will further polarize the country. During that 3-day visit, Yamamoto also met members of the Kenyan government to try and talk them around. The UK is also concerned, with the British Minister for Africa saying, "I hope all Kenyans will recognise the need for national dialogue and healing." But rather than healing the country, it's feared December 12th could reopen old wounds. After years of being seen as one of Africa's most stable nations, Kenya has experienced a rise in attacks by Al-Shabaab, a major drought, and a drop in the economy, which hasn't been helped by the instability of 2 elections in 6 months. And with Odinga refusing to back down, few people expect an alternative president will help overcome those challenges. Vanessa Keneally, The Newsmakers.
With me here in the studio is Kimani Ichung'wah. He's a member of Kenya's parliament with the ruling Jubilee Party. And joining us from Nairobi is Mohamed Nyamwanda. He's a digital communications officer for the opposition National Super Alliance, NASA. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen. Mohammed, let me begin with you. Why is Raila still going ahead with this on December 12th? Everybody's warning him. Even the US is getting involved now. There's a feeling it will be reckless. There'll be blood on the streets. Why is he doing this?
Well, I take cognizance of the fact that there may be blood on the street, but we are not the ones shedding blood on the streets. Just this morning, we were at the city mortuary removing bodies of dead people, majority of whom have been felled by bullet wounds, and most of them have been killed by the security forces, or allegedly by the security forces. And there's no Nassarites, as we call ourselves, going around killing anyone, especially in NASA strongholds. It's very peaceful. Members of all communities are coexisting very nicely and very peacefully. Why is Odinga going on with this? It was announced. It's a people-driven process. We are on a quest for justice. We won the August 8th election. It was stolen from us. We went to court. We got it nullified. The court ordered for a free and fair election, repeat election to be done. However, that didn't come to pass. We could see an election doesn't start on election day. It starts in the events leading to the election. We could see very clearly that
why not have an inauguration?
We were being pushed to an event.
Certainly, but I mean, you respected the Supreme Court when they nullified. You respected the Supreme Court when they nullified the first election, but then you didn't respect them enough when they said the second one was fine, and you didn't show up for the second one. So why are you still having an inauguration now when you didn't even show up for that second election?
Well, we need to ask ourselves, why didn't we show up for that election? That was just an event with a predetermined outcome. It was a waste of time. As has been proven, only 30% of the registered voters at best showed up in that election. That leaves 70% of the country disenfranchised, of the registered voters disenfranchised. And even the 30% figure we feel has been inflated because most polling stations were right across the country. Even in so-called Jubilee strongholds, they had very dismal turnout. So it was a sham process.
Certainly.
And we didn't, yes.
Okay, let's bring in Kimani. Kimani, essentially, the long and the short of it from NASA, your president has no legitimacy. They feel they pulled out of that second round because they had major problems with that process. And now the president's going ahead. And on top of all of that, as Mohammed says, and Miguna, the last time we had you on the program as well, he went further and said this is a genocide being committed by the security forces against Raila and NASA supporters?
You know, Imran, the question of legitimacy stems from the Constitution and the rule of law. Whether government is legitimate or not stems basically from the Constitution. And we did the elections in line with the Constitution and in line with the laws of the Republic, and that was verified by the Supreme Court. Therefore, the question of legitimacy was answered in court. The question as to numbers, what numbers show up for an election. Immediately after that election, there was a by-election in one of the constituencies in NASA's strongholds in Kisii. And the seat was actually won by a NASA member of parliament with a paltry 18%. The voter turnout was about 31%, 31, 32%, 31.6%, much less than the voter turnout nationally. And there was no boycott in the by-election. Therefore, in repeat elections, the turnout will definitely be less than that.
But doesn't it...
But just to answer what
Mr.
Nyamwada is saying, one, that they will go ahead with the swearing in because they, what they call their swearing in of Raila Odinga, because they announced it. You know, it's preposterous, Imran. And I'll tell you, Raila Odinga is simply in love with bloodshed and dead bodies. He is in love with bloodshed and dead bodies for one reason. The only way Raila Odinga ever ascended to high office in our republic to become prime minister in 2007, 2008 was over the blood and bodies of dead Kenyans.
But
in
Kenyatta has the power now, right?
Seeks.
Okay, but why doesn't Kenyatta hold out the olive branch? He has the power right now, right? When you were on the program previously, you said Raila should be treated as a criminal. We have the Attorney General saying that he should be tried for treason for holding this inauguration. It might be a bad idea, possibly, arguably, but trying him for treason when millions of Kenyans support the man, who really wants bloodshed? Is it his side or your side?
I'll tell you this, Imran. Is Raila Odinga who wants bloodshed because in the past he has been rewarded for spilling people's blood. He was rewarded with high office as prime minister. How that was done was by the West coming in to intervene in our national politics and forcing what was then called a grand coalition government. Raila Odinga today expects that the same will happen, that he will cause bloodshed, that Kenyans will die, and the West will come in now and tell us people dialogue on governance issues and share power. And I want to say, if it is a question of Uhuru Kenyatta extending an olive branch, he has already done that. Uhuru Kenyatta stated in no uncertain terms that one of his top priorities now is to unify the people of Kenya. And unifying the people of Kenya and getting an all-inclusive government doesn't necessarily mean Raila Odinga being in
Mohammed,
government. Raila Odinga insists that for a government to be inclusive, he must be in that government.
So
for him to be in government, there must be bloodshed.
Mohammed, Raila is not the one looking for peace. It's Kenyatta, according to Kimani. What do you think?
That's a very preposterous statement, at the very least. First of all, I want to thank him for admitting that the turnout in the August 26 events was dismal, and it's finally it's good he's admitting. So that shows already he is conceding and admitting that they have a lack of legitimacy. And the tyranny of numbers myth that they have always been peddling around, that they have numbers. When it was left, the field was left all by themselves. They couldn't feel any...
I think it's not answering the question, Imran. The question on legitimacy, I think I did state
let me get to
the legitimacy question stems from the Constitution. Numbers in any repeat election, Nyamwada, you do know that. You live in Kenya, you are in Nairobi today, you do know that numbers in a repeat election cannot be as high as the first election. 40% in the second repeat election was extremely good and extremely high. It was only less than 1 million votes, less than what Uhuru Kenyatta got in August.
Go ahead, Mohammed.
That's your opinion. Well, 40%, that's after a lot of padding and a lot of inflation. But anyway, back to the question. We want peace. We've always wanted peace. We have never killed anyone. He's talking about that in 2007 we got the prime minister's Raila Odinga got the prime minister's position after blood. If he's going to be genuine with themselves, members of the community that he's come from, in predominantly NASA strongholds today, very few of them came into harm's way. The problem was mainly centered around the Rift Valley. And today the Rift Valley is with them. It's no longer part of the matrix as we speak. We want peace, we want justice. We are not asking for a power-sharing agreement. We are not asking for a coalition government. We are not asking for a transitional government or any kind. All we want, simple and fair, is a free, fair, credible, verifiable election where everybody is satisfied with the outcome. There are a lot of countries in the world where the presidential elections are very closely fought and the results is sometimes even less than a million votes. But because the process is transparent, people accept. But this is a totally opaque process. It's a hard sell. 70% of the country feels aggrieved. And we hope that they come to reason and we come to a common ground and we get this thing done again. That's all we're asking.
Okay, fair enough. So Kimani, let me put it to you this way, right? So 15 million people voted in August, only 8 million people voted in October. 7 million people didn't vote, and many or most of them were likely to have been Raila Odinga supporters because he boycotted the election.
No.
That meant, well, okay, that's okay. You disagree with that, but that's a popular.
Just to correct that, because that is the notion that Raila Odinga and his supporters may want.
Okay, fair enough. That's what they believe. That's what they believe.
But
okay, let me finish my question.
Also, millions of our supporters who did not vote because they were intimidated.
Okay, fair enough. You say they intimidated. You put it on the record. You put it on the record. Yeah. Okay, fine. So you feel they were intimidated. Nevertheless, your candidate got 98% of the vote. And I don't mean to be flippant, but like Kim Jong-un doesn't get 98% of the vote in North Korea, right? It was constitutional, undoubtedly. But you've got to lead this country until 2022. It's extremely divided right now. They're not willing to compromise. You're not willing to compromise. How else are you going to get to 2022 without some sort of new elections and an opportunity to go to the ballot box between now and then, because that's 5 years away?
I think, Imran, the only thing that nobody would ask Kenyans to compromise on is on the question of even going back to elections. On compromising on how to move our country forward, on how to better the lives of our people, that we are more than willing. And even on the question of unity, we are more than willing to compromise and sit down round the table and agree how do we move the country forward. But we should not be seen in any way in a democratic state to be rewarding bad manners. Because there's nothing, again, Imran, that stops me in 2022, whoever wins the presidency, me forming my own militia, then claiming as taking government. We will make it a system, a new system of governance in our country, where all you need to do is wait for an election, the election year, cause violence, and you get rewarded for bad manners. And all that I'm maintaining is that the world and Kenya should not be seen in any way to be rewarding Raila Odinga's bad manners of causing violence, causing bloodshed in our country to get rewarded with high office. If it is a question of unifying Kenyans, President Uhuru Kenyatta has said it is top of his priorities. How do you unite Kenyans? And I'll tell you the other truth about our country. In my country, it is not the people who are not united. It is politicians like myself and others who incite people against each other.
So you admit you guys are the problem?
Politicians are the problem. And the singular problem today is Raila Odinga and his thirst for raw power.
Okay. Kimani Ichung'wah and Mohammed Nyamwanda, I would love to go on, but I'm out of time. I have to move on the program. I sincerely thank both of you for joining us here on the Newsmakers.
If the killing of Saleh was caused by the coalition or by Yemeni government forces or by some other militia, there would have been some possibilities for peace negotiations. But Saleh was killed by the Houthis. So there is no other way out but to continue fighting against the Houthis.
Right now, peace in Yemen seems as far away as ever. The Arab nation is in the middle of a brutal civil war. Thousands have been killed and millions of children need urgent medical assistance. And then there's a cholera epidemic. And you'd think things couldn't get much worse. But just days ago, Houthi rebels killed their former president and ally, Ali Abdullah Saleh, plunging the country into further unrest. The last few days have seen some of the fiercest fighting since the conflict began almost 3 years ago. So, what are the prospects for peace in Yemen? Well, who better to ask than my guest today, who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2011 for her peace-building work in Yemen, Tawakkol Karman. Good to have you on the program. Thanks for joining us on the Newsmakers.
Thank you, Amran.
He is the man that you and so many others initially rose up against in the late 2000s and culminating in 2011. Ali Abdullah Saleh, he's dead now. The Houthis killed him. How do you feel about that?
It's a tragedy. It's really, we didn't wish this for him. We made a great peaceful revolution against him. We forced him to leave the authority peacefully. We gave him the chance for build Yemen with us through his ruling party in the transitional period. We allowed them to participate with us in leading the government, in national dialogue, in writing the draft of constitution. But unfortunately, he chose to destroy everything, every peace chance that we offer to him, and every peace chance that we want to build our country. He allied with the militia of al-Houthi that's backed from Iran, and he used to dance with the snakes, and at the end, the snakes killed him.
2011 was a very optimistic time for the whole region, from Yemen all the way west across to Tunisia, right? Across the region. Your Nobel Prize meant so much to so many people. You were the youngest at the time, you were the first Arab woman, and it symbolized all that hope that people had in the region. 6 years on, do you feel really sad and disappointed that all those hopes and dreams didn't seem to turn out in the right way?
Of course, I feel very sad with all this chaos, with all this blood, with all these wars. But I don't lose the hope. And this is the same thing with all the revolutionary people, the peaceful people who dream for justice, freedom, democracy, and rule of law. When we started our peaceful revolution, when we started our Arab Spring, we knew that we will pay a very high cost. The freedom cost a lot. And the freedom, we will not reach to the freedom with all this, with all these sacrifices. But all the chaos, it is not the result of us. It comes from the counter-revolution. It comes from the conflict between regional forces from Iran one hand and from Saudi and Emirates from other hand, and also from the absence and the silence and the conspiracy of the international community of the West. They don't want us to reach to the democracy. They don't want us to win in our battle for freedom and equality and rule of law. And we are not the cause of all this deterioration. We are the cause of the dream of people for freedom and justice and democracy. We are the cause of the peaceful struggle that forced Ali Saleh to live peacefully, Mubarak to live peacefully, Ben Ali to live peacefully, and we will be the cause who will build our countries, and who will win in the end. The victory for the people is our destiny. So this is the rule of all the revolution around all of the world. It's the history of all the revolutions in all the history, in all our, in all centuries. Right. So every revolution followed by counter-revolution. But who won at the last is the people who really determined and who really continue on their struggle and sacrificing for their freedom.
At the moment, the numbers are terrible. More than 10,000 dead, 50,000 injured, 900,000 affected by cholera, 15 million people without basic health care, all sorts of warnings from the World Food Programme, the Red Cross, all of them with dire warnings. And while all of this is going on, though you may blame the Houthis for starting the war, there's the Saudi-led blockade. Cities like Taiz, where you're from, people can't afford food, they're starving.
Yeah.
Do you blame them as well for blockading your country and for maybe collectively punishing innocent Yemenis?
Of course, I blame them. I blame the coalition between Saudi and Emirates on destroying my country, on putting this ugly blockade since about 3 years, as well as I blame Houthis and the ousted President Ali Saleh and Iran from other hand. Both of them, they agreed on destroying my country. Saudi and Emirates announced themselves that they will help our legitimate president. When they started their operation in March 2015, they said our operation, military operation, is to help the legitimacy, the legitimate authority, which is represented by our President Hadi, to face the coup of Houthi and Saleh and also the will of Iran to occupy Yemen. They announced that. But the reality that they don't deal as the one who helped Yemenis, as the one who held the legitimate president. Now, our president, our legitimate president, that they are claim that they are helping him, now he is in house arrest in Riyadh.
You believe that?
I believe that, and I am the one who announced that. President Hasdi, until now, he couldn't return to Yemen.
You think Mohammed bin Salman is keeping him under house arrest?
They prevented him from returning to Yemen. They preventing him. They denying him. They didn't allow him to take the plane in Eid al-Adha to go to Yemen just to have prayer of Adha, of Eid al-Adha in Yemen. So they prevent him to return to Yemen. They occupied our land. Look, Imran, in Yemen now we have 70% of Yemen is liberated land now. Most of the important parts of the 70% is under the occupation of Emirates with the silence of Saudi. Now, they occupied our ports, our airports, our lands, and they create militia in this 70% liberated cities. So if they are really with the Yemenis, if they are really with the legitimate president, they should let our president to return to Aden, the temporary capital, to rule Yemen, to rule the 70% of the liberated, provinces. And second, they have to leave all the territories that they are occupying. And third, they have to stop their dealing and supporting the militia that they created. This is if they are really want peace for Yemen, if they are really want to help Yemen, this is one very important gate for stopping, this war. And other side, which is now the very important question: what is next after Ali Saleh's death?
What do you think is next?
A lot of things, but the most important thing now is the GBC, which is the party of the Ali Saleh. They have to forget that they are the party of the dictator. They have to represent themselves as a national party who will be with the Yemenis on building new Yemen, who will implement with Yemenis the national dialogue, the outcomes that they sign on it, who will work with all Yemenis, with all parties to put the constitution draft in the to referendum. That is very important for the GBC, who will refuse to be inherited by the family of Ali Saleh. That is very important. Right. This party shouldn't be inherited by the family of Ali Saleh, and this party shouldn't inherit the policy and agendas of Ali Saleh. This is number one. Number two, President Hadi and the government and the parties that support his legitimacy, they should open the gate for dialogue, the gate for negotiation with Houthis, with also GBC. So they have, it's now, yes, Ali Saleh did been killed. We are against that kind of killing him, but also maybe this is a chance for Yemen to build peace. So we can make that through the dialogue. So that is very important for the President Hadi and government to open the gate for dialogue. Third thing, which is very important, Houthis, militia, should agree on hand-overing their weapons. And in a process that will withdraw all the weapons from all the armed groups. So that will lead to the state, that the state should be the only body that control and monopolize the weapons. This is very important, and also will negotiate for the transitional justice. That is very, very, very important. This is during Yemeni as a Yemeni people, we should, as a Yemeni people, solve our problem. We shouldn't count in outside support. So we can do it now. We can, and I'm calling them, let's do it. How long we will fight each other? How long? We can do it together. And now let's make this moment is our chance for the future. On the other hand, as I said, something belongs to the Arab coalition led by Saudi and Emirates. They should let our president, Hadi, to return to Aden. And as I said, they have to leave the lands that they occupying, and also they have to stop their supporting militias.
I have one final question for you.
Yeah.
You spoke about President Hadi not being able to go back, as you say. You're here in Istanbul. We're very happy to have you in Istanbul. But does it break your heart that you are in exile and you can't go back home?
Of course, it breaks my heart, and it breaks all the hearts of those people who are in exile now. Now we are not be able to return to Yemen, to the north, which is occupied by the Houthis, and to the south, who is occupied by Saudi and Emirates. It's really something break our heart, but also it didn't break our will, our belief that we will win in the end. This is our battle for freedom and justice and democracy. And all those counter-revolution who want to break our will, our dream, our determination on continue our rule, our route to our freedom, no, they will be the loser. So no, yes, it's just temporary, sadness, temporary losing, and on the other side, it's fake victory for them. So the future is for us, for the people, any people around the world who fight for their freedom and democracy and rule of law and don't lose their hope. Absolutely, they win.
Tawakkol Karman, it's been a pleasure having you on the Newsmakers. Thank you very much for joining us. That's all for this edition of the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garda. Remember, you can check out more of our stories on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Remember to like, follow and subscribe. Until next time, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.